Even with mortgage rates remaining way up near 7%, this week we saw an 8% increase in people applying for mortgages. You can think of this as an 8% increase in demand, even with these high interest rates. But what does this mean for the Dallas real estate market? My name is Michael. I'm a real estate agent here in the Dallas area, and every Monday I give you a weekly update covering all of Dallas and Collin counties. We're looking for trends, which cities and zip codes are the hottest if you may be looking to sell your property and get top dollar, as well as which cities and zip codes are the coolest if you're a buyer or investor looking for a deal. We'll also be tracking mortgage rates as well as mortgage purchase applications, as that's our best leading indicator of what demand is going to look like 30 to 90 days from now. We're looking at things like median list price, days on market, how many homes are having price decreases, inventory, and if you stick around until the end, I do my favorite part of the video, which is a top 10 rank list of the top 10 hottest and coolest both cities and zip codes. So you don't want to miss that. If this sounds like something you're into, make sure and hit the subscribe button. And if you're looking to move to the Dallas area, whether it's next week or next year, I'd love to connect. I've helped every one of these yellow dots find their little piece of Texas, and I'd love to help you too. Just call, text, or shoot me an email. All that info is in the description below. Okay, today is June 20th. Let's see what the data is telling us this week. And if this is an old video, you can click on the playlist here and hopefully it will take you to the latest market update. First up is market news. Since we spoke last week, the FOMC had their meeting and they announced that for the time being, they are putting a pause on hiking rates. So this comes after 15 consecutive rate hikes. They finally decided they're going to pause. And you would think this is good news, but it had almost no impact on the bond markets or mortgage rates. This is possibly because the Fed also suggested that they may resume rate hikes later in the year and are estimating as many as 2 more rate hikes and forecasting a final rate of about 5.6%. So let's move on to interest rates. Okay, we started last week at a 6.92. We ended at a 6.95. That's where we begin this week. If you can see, not much fluctuation. 6.92 up to 6.98. Back down to 6.95, and that was it, even with the FOMC announcement of pausing rate hikes. If you'll remember, historically, interest rates being above 6.5% has meant that demand is drying up. But as we've seen over the last month, rates remaining up near 7% are having a smaller and smaller impact on buyers every week. Buyers are just getting used to these higher rates. So to recap, starting way back on May 21st, we had 4 consecutive weeks around that 7% interest rate. And this led to about a 14% total cumulative decline in people applying for mortgages. So we were seeing anywhere from 2 to 4% decrease in people applying for mortgages every week for the last 4 weeks. However, as I mentioned, the big news this week is even with rates up near 7%, the same place it's been for the last month, we saw an 8% increase this week in people applying for mortgages, which is a huge jump. So this basically means weekly demand is down only about 5% from where it was before rates jumped up to 7%. So every week we have been seeing more and more evidence that buyers are getting used to these rates, and this to me is the biggest evidence. First, we saw it in that every week we were seeing a smaller and smaller decline on people applying for mortgages, and now this week we've seen an 8% increase in people applying for mortgages. So buyers are not waiting on the sidelines anymore hoping for lower rates. And as I say every week, if you can buy a house, then buy a house. There is no reason to believe it's going to get any easier from here, and if you're still on the fence about whether or not now is a good time to buy a house, please watch this video. And if you watch that video and you're still on the fence, call me. Okay, let's move on to housing data. Let's start with Dallas County as a whole. And as you know, if you've ever watched my videos, what I look at here is called the Market Action Index. It just takes all of this data and puts it into one nice, easy to read graphic with a number. We are at a 56. Anything 30 and below is a buyer's market, anything above that, and we're just seeing how much of a seller's market are we in. As you can see, we saw a little uptick this week. Again, even though rates are near 7%, we're seeing an uptick, which is just showing people getting used to the higher rates. Demand is returning even though rates are not dropping. So still a very strong seller's market. Median list price has really remained pretty much flat, even with rates jumping up to 7%. Remember, that was 4 or 5 weeks ago that happened, and prices have not dropped. Median days on market has remained at 28. We saw a little blip up this week to 35, but right back down to 28. The amount of homes having price decreases has remained steady around that 32 to 36 range, which is a totally normal range for any real estate market. Inventory looks like it's continuing to climb. Again, it looks really dramatic here. I'll zoom in a minute to show you. That's not significant, but it is good. It's definitely way better than going down or staying flat. And I also want to say, when we're looking at trends, we want to remove the 7-day average and just look at the 90-day. So if you look at the 90-day, the median list price is still climbing straight up. But if you were just to look at the 7-day, you'd see it's a little bit flat. That's why we look at the 90-day for trends. And then let's zoom in on the inventory for the 90-day. Well, let's move that. So as you can see, well, what you saw this straight run up, that's actually the weekly. So we'll look at that. and it's just this tiny little move. Remember, we need to get way back up here, somewhere more in the 4,000s to have a normal market, and we haven't even broken this little peak of 2,900. So don't get too excited about that inventory. But again, it's better than flat or down. But if you look at the 90-day, you can see we're still pretty much flat. Okay, let's move on to Collin County. We're looking at the exact same things. Collin County was cooling off a little bit faster, but again, it also had an uptick in the market action index. The median list price, however, is falling. The median days on market is falling as well. 21, that's as low as it's been. Homes having price decreases still well within that 32 to 34, 36 range. Inventory also looks to be climbing quickly, but we'll zoom in on that. So it's just still a strong seller's market, even after a month of high rates. And looking at the 90-day average of median list price, it's definitely still climbing, not as fast as Dallas County, but let's take a look. This is 1 year ago, this dot. So 1 year ago, we were at 636. And today we're about 634. So if this climbs a little, we're going to be back to positive price appreciation, even with rates at 7%. If that's not evidence that this is not going to get easier to buy a house, I don't know what is. Houses are more expensive than they've ever been. Mortgages are more expensive than they've been in a long time, and prices are still going up. So let's zoom in on that inventory. So the weekly, this one definitely looks like it's climbing faster, and actually, so we can see inventory 1 year ago was at 1321, and now it's at 1623, but still hasn't even broken the recent peak of 2022. We need to be more back in the 4,000s for a normal market. Now we're moving on to my absolute favorite part. These are the top 10 ranked charts, and these charts are ranking out of all 84 zip codes in Dallas County and 26 zip codes in Collin County. So let's start with the hottest markets. These are the hottest cities and hottest zip codes, and these are on 90-day averages and based off the market action index. So the absolute hottest city has remained Grapevine for a very long time, and you can see it's ticking back up. Sachse moves up one spot, and Sachse has really heated up over the last few weeks. It started out way down here, and it's all the way up to number 2 and climbing. Carrollton cools off one spot. Louisville and Plano maintain their spots. Duncanville comes out of nowhere all the way to number 6 on the list. Richardson heats up one spot. Balch Springs cools off 2 spots. Irving cools off 2 spots, and Coppell knocks Grand Prairie off the list for the number 10 spot. So these are the absolute 10 hottest cities in all of Dallas and Collin County. If you live in one of these, you're going to be getting top dollar for your property. Now, we're going to zoom in past the city to the zip code level. The absolute hottest zip code is Grapevine 76051, then Carrollton 75007, Plano 75023, Irving 75063, Garland 75044, Sachse 75048, Plano 75075, Grand Prairie 75052, Plano 75025, Allen 75013. Those are the 10 hottest zip codes, and you can see we're starting at a 78.58 all the way up to an 87.73, and if you'll remember, a 30 and below is a buyer's market. So let's move on to the coolest list and see how close we can get to a 30. These are the absolute coolest cities, top 10. Farmersville has remained the coolest market in all of these counties, and you can see it was cool and it's just remained cool. No signs of life there. It's a 36.54, nearly a buyer's market, followed by Ferris cools off one, Blue Ridge heats up one, Leonard cools off 2 spots, White Wright heats up one, Prosper cools off one, Seagaville cools off one, Van Alstyne heats up 3 spots, but look, it's barely like that's all it takes to heat up 3 spots. It's like don't die. That's the criteria. Sunnyvale cools off one, and Royce City heats up one to be the hottest city on the coolest cities list. Okay, zooming into the coolest zip codes. If you are an investor or a buyer looking for a deal, this is where you're most likely to not run into multiple offer situations and be able to get price reductions. So starting with the absolute coolest is Dallas 75235, followed by Dallas 75219, Farmersville 75442, Dallas 75212, Ferris 75125, Blue Ridge 75424, Dallas 75208, Dallas 75209, Leonard 75452, White Wright 75491. So those are the absolute coolest cities and zip codes in all of Dallas and Collin County. Now moving on to inventory, which we've covered briefly. This is a 90-day, so this is the actual trend. This is the weekly 7-day. But all we're looking is, can we spot an early trend? And right out the gate, finally Dallas is starting to curve up. Of course, you don't see it over here. Well, actually, you barely do. This is what you want as a buyer. You want all of these to start curving up. McKinney is not, but Frisco is curving up hard. That is great news for buyers who are looking to get into Frisco, which, by the way, is the #1 safest city in the entire country. And if you want to know more about the safest cities, I made a great video on that a few weeks ago, and I'll link it here. But actually, 3 of the top 5 safest cities in the country are suburbs of Dallas. Plano definitely curving up hard. This is great because remember, these are still very hot markets, but inventory is going up, so that's what you want to see as a buyer. Prosper is remaining flat. Rockwall curving up pretty well. Royce City flat. Garland flat. Allen, medium level curve up. Mesquite still dropping in inventory, pretty incredible. And then of course, looking at the 90-day, you're seeing a little hope starting to form on Frisco, definitely on Plano, a little bit in Royce City, Rockwall. We're seeing some little curves here. Garland's kind of flattening out. So yeah, I would say if you're looking for hope here, you got a little bit on Dallas, a tiny bit on McKinney, then you've got Frisco and Plano and Royce City and Rockwall are all starting to show curves up. So that's it for this week. And remember, if you're looking to make a move in the Dallas area, whether it's next week or next year, I'd love to connect. Just call, text, or shoot me an email. All that is in the description below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.